Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I apologize for the last minute invitation to you all. I was trying to update a database and it took me a while, and then I had some problems on the back end. So thank you for doing this. I am recording this. I will send out the captioned recording at the end. Please make sure that if you do have some questions, you can jot those in the chat, or we can unmute later and have you ask the questions verbally for us, and I will have stopped recording at that point. So we're going to start with advising for public service careers. And there's going to be in 3 different parts. Part 1 will be Matt with career services. Part 2 will be me with basically prepping for grad school. And we are going to run this for about an hour and hopefully about 20 minutes each section. So just sit tight and make sure you've got any of those questions ready for us. And I wanted to start with just a reason for us doing this. Now, the goal for us here at the Bush School of Government at Texas A&M is we're trying to equip the undergraduate advisors with just more information and resources. So when the students come to you and talk about areas maybe related to your focus in liberal arts, economics, sometimes even business sides, you don't always know where to push them or what kind of advice to give them so that they can do some legwork of their own and maybe find out what area is really of interest to them and what they may want to follow up with. So we're going to give you some websites. We're going to give you some overview of public focused areas. And then you can take what you need and maybe pass that on to the students. And we are here at Texas A&M, the Bush School. We're a school of public service, and we're focusing specifically on areas like public administration, public policy, nonprofits on one side of the house, and the other side is doing national security, international development and economics, a number of government contracting kind of jobs. So we're going to cover what that looks like. That doesn't mean that every student wants to come here, and we understand that, but we'll give you some resources where they can search for the different schools that maybe look like us, but maybe out of state or even within the state. And just as a reminder, public servants come from all backgrounds. So they may be heavily involved in a lot of different activities on your campus, but they may not be a liberal arts major. They may come from other areas. And they may not know yet, maybe they're only freshmen or sophomores, how to narrow those interests. So maybe this will give you some guidance. We're here to help you, help guide your students. So we've got 2 presenters today. Matt Upton is our Assistant Dean for Career and Student Services. He'll do the first part after I do an intro. And then my name is Catherine Meyer. I'm the Director of Recruitment and Admissions here at the graduate level. And we just wanted to make sure that you guys had some resources. So again, part 1, Matt's going to cover the common public service careers and what those sectors look like, the grad school advantage of maybe why students should look at grad school. Yes, they can get a job straight from undergrad, but maybe they're not going to get the kind of job they're looking for because they may need more knowledge, skills, and abilities, or the networking that comes with grad school. He's also going to cover a little bit on the cost benefit, that return on investment, and what it might look like as going into a career field at a bachelor's versus the master's. And then the career support, just kind of re-emphasizing, reminding your students to use those campus career offices and workshops and go to grad fairs and those kinds of things. On the part 2, preparing for grad school, I'm going to give several slides, but some of them are going to go pretty quickly. The kinds of things that students should be asking of themselves and maybe into those institutions they might be looking for. I'm going to give you some helpful websites that you can reference the students to. We're also going to talk about the undergrad. What should they be doing during undergrad to develop those courses, their involvement, so that they can be a competitive applicant at the grad school level. And then we're also going to talk about the timeline and requirements. And then I'm going to give a snippet of just the overview of graduate school and what that costs and the kind of scholarships and what they should be looking for. And again, a couple of helpful websites for that. Part 3 is me turning this recording off, and it's just the question and answers and finding out what's on your mind. And we'll go from there. And Matt and I will stay on and be able to handle those. So at this point, I'm going to pass this on to Matt Upton. He's in our Career Services office, and let him start from here.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. You know, when I started at the Bush School 20 years ago, I didn't know a whole lot about public service or international affairs. I just knew that it was a promotion opportunity for me when I moved from the Career Center on main campus to working with graduate students. And what I really quickly discovered is that there are public sector jobs literally for any background. They hire doctors, they hire lawyers, they hire people who are going to do communications, they do hire people who are interested in science and technology, human rights and law, government service. So all of the areas that you see here are a snapshot of the types of careers that our students, when they finish their master's degree in public administration or international affairs, these are the types of careers that we go into. And so that's why we want to talk to advisors, because we know that you've got students who are coming to you who have a wide range of interests. The other thing that we remind our students when they come in, even as graduate students, some of them come in very focused. I'm guessing you all probably have some people like that too. They know exactly what they want to do. They know exactly what major they're going to be, or they could have been like me, probably your worst nightmare. I changed majors 4 different times. I thought I wanted to go to the medical field, so I pursued one route. Then I decided I didn't really like cell biology, and I was a biology major. So I'll switch over and I'll do something else. So I was an English major for a period of time. And then after that, I thought, oh my goodness, if I have to read another novel, I'm not going to really like reading anymore. So I'll switch back and find another science background. So I went to biomedical science and kind of pursued that path. And then what do I do today? I work with graduate students, nothing that I went to undergraduate for. So I know those are the types of things that you're working with. Those are the types of students you're dealing with. And we have the same thing at the graduate level. They come in very focused, and others who come in and say, I just know I want to help people. And so public and international affairs is a great career path for them, because they really can pursue almost anything that they're interested in. And there will be opportunities in the public sector for them. So you might be interested in the types of organizations that we think about when we're talking about public service or public sector jobs. So we're talking nonprofit organizations. In case you haven't noticed, there are gazillions of them out there, some ranging from those that we all know about, you know, American Heart Association, Susan G. Komen, breast cancer awareness. You've got everything on across political spectrums, faith-based, non-faith-based spectrums. So there are a lot of opportunities in the nonprofit sector. International NGOs, if you're not familiar what an NGO is, it just stands for non-governmental organization. So those are what we think of nonprofit organizations that function outside of the United States. You know, when we think about nonprofits in the US, we're talking typically about a 501c3 organization, which is just a tax code. But international nonprofits or NGOs, we also have graduates that are interested in that. The federal government, primarily the US federal government, although some of our international students, if you're working with international students, some of them are interested in going back to work for the federal government within their country. And we have students who do that as well. State government, yes, largely focused on Texas. You see the Texas Capitol there, and those are 4 of our former students. At least 3 of those former students, that's when they were all students here several years ago, at least 3 of those students have worked in state government since that time, or at least something related to state government. Local government, working for cities, counties, municipalities. If you're in Louisiana, parishes, we've got former students who are doing that. Government contractors. So we're talking about places like Lockheed Martin or Northrop Grumman or other places that have government contractors, but they're doing work for the government. They're just getting a paycheck from that contractor instead. Private industry, yes, we do have students who go into private industry jobs, although we focus a lot on public sector. We are still going to work with our students from a career services standpoint. The way we view it is, it's not my job to decide where a student wants to go to work. It's my job to help them have the resources so that they can pursue any line of work that they're interested in. The other thing that we know about the public sector is that our students and students who have a propensity for public service tend to fluctuate between the public and private sector. They may work for the public sector for a while and then flip over and work in the private sector for a while. The other thing that we know about our students is that public sector or public service is a mindset. It's not just a career for them. So they may volunteer with their local church, they may volunteer with a local nonprofit or organization. They might be a volunteer firefighter. I had one of our former students tell me one point, he said, I work for NASA. And yes, I know that's a federal government job, but I really think of my public service as the work that I do with my local fire department as a volunteer firefighter. So a lot of opportunities for our students interested in public sector work. You might be interested in some of the specific organizations that our students go to work for. In the federal government, we're talking about the intelligence community, CIA, FBI, National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. In other areas of the federal government, USAID, that's going to be international development work, US Department of State, Agriculture, Commerce, Defense, Justice, the Environmental Protection Agency, US Government Accountability Office, US Space Force, something that we're seeing a few more students get interested in and get hired into. In state and local government, these are just some of the localities, some of the places that our students have gone to work. City of Austin, Sugar Land, Mesa, Arizona, Harris County down in the Houston area, outside of the state of Texas, Maryland, Nebraska, New York State. And you can continue to see other state agencies, Texas Department of Public Safety, Texas Education Agency, the Texas Legislature, and then Texas Parks and Wildlife, and then even outside of Texas, again, another example, Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality, plus some other things. Nonprofit organizations, as we talked about earlier, some of these are going to be really familiar to you. Big nonprofit organizations like American Cancer Society or Big Brothers Big Sisters of a specific area within your community, Cook's Children's Health Foundation, or Habitat for Humanity. We've had students work or graduates go to work at both the local Habitat for Humanity. We've also had students go to other states or even at the national operation of Habitat for Humanity. St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, Teach for America, United Way, and then associations. And just one example is the Western Governors Association. So in the government contractor space or private sector space, you'll see consulting firms like Accenture, government contractors like Booz Allen Hamilton, or Chemonics. Chemonics is a government contractor. They do the same kind of work that USAID does. And so international development work, but they're a government contractor. MD Anderson Cancer Center, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and the United Health Group, just to name a few of those. What are some of the job titles that our students go to work in? And this is something that, again, this is just a sample of them, not going to be comprehensive and cover everything, but the types of skills that our students come out of graduate school with, and the students that you may be interfacing with that may be interested, they're going to do analytical work, looking at budgets and programs and policy, doing intelligence analysis. So working in those intelligence agencies and evaluating the information that's coming in, information technology, risk and compliance assessment. And that could be for things like financial fraud, financial risk. It could also be emergency management and evaluating some of those types of things, security analysts, coordinators, everything from communications to government affairs, to after-school programs and nonprofit organizations, working with community colleges, working with student populations or populations in communities to give them access to education, make sure that they succeed. Consultants, they may be working for a government agency or a private sector industry like Accenture or PricewaterhouseCoopers, or some others that are doing consulting work, consulting for response and recovery, money laundering. They may be working and developing or directing policy and protocols for a variety of different organizations, or they may be out there investigating social equity challenges within communities or within agencies, or even criminal cases. They may be managing a legislative office as a chief of staff. They may be managing a nonprofit organization, or they may find themselves working in a management role in higher education down the road, giving access at community colleges or at state universities or private universities, managing fundraising initiatives. They may also do research work if they're interested in things like science and technology, environmental issues, energy. They may use their research skills in those capacities in a variety of policy fields, and obviously much more than we're going to be able to cover here in our session today. So I don't know about you, but I've got a 19-year-old college and freshman in college. And so knowing that the value of education, the education that he's pursuing is really important to me. He did not know what he wanted to do, so he took a year off after high school. And he kind of worked during that time. And so he and I had a really good conversation recently about he's at a community college. And I told him, I said, I love that you're there, and I would encourage you to stay there because the value of that education is really strong. And until you know exactly what you want to do, you want to make sure that you're using your money wisely. We want to do the same thing at the graduate level. And we know that a lot of undergraduate students are thinking about graduate school, but don't know if it's worth the money. And so we want to talk about that and what some of the advantages are from a financial standpoint, but also from a professional standpoint. So the first thing we like to tell our students and remind them of is that graduate school is a time to continue developing knowledge, skills, and abilities in some specific areas, and also apply those knowledge, skills, and abilities that they may have developed in their undergraduate coursework or in their undergraduate leadership experiences. So we're going to help them learn how to do grant writing or develop quantitative skills or analysis, or maybe even develop regional expertise on a certain part of the world that they want to then use in an international affairs career down the road. From a professionalism standpoint, we're helping them further develop their writing skills. And you may see a weird word there, bluff. We teach in the public sector, we talk a lot about putting that bottom line up front in the work that they're doing. And that's really important in policy analysis. So that's one of the skills that we're teaching them. And we've got staff members who work with them on their writing. We've also got a staff member who focuses on leadership development. So the students can choose to put together a leadership development plan, personal leadership development plan. They also supplement that with things like Myers-Briggs type indicator. What's their personality type and how does that play into who they are as an individual? We also use Clifton Strengths so that they know what their top 5 strengths are, but we use the full assessment so they actually know where they rank in all 34, I believe it's 34 strengths that are on the full report for that, again, so that they have some self-awareness and know who they are. They're going to learn research, whether they like to or not. They're going to continue to develop their group project skills, working with projects, working with other people. We bring in a wide range, and most graduate schools do bring in a wide range of speakers and have professional conferences that they can attend. We're also going to up the ante on the level of, professionalism, the way that they dress, the way that they speak, the general expectations of being prepared to go into a professional environment. We're going to help them secure internships in these fields. As most graduate programs that have that, because we have a requirement for that, we have a resource to help with that. They're going to do work with actual clients, and they're going to learn how to take the things that they've been learning in their graduate education and apply it to a real world context. And that's also a great chance for them to network and learn other people. We're just like any other higher education institution. We have student organizations, we have activities that they can be involved in, and we have international travel and language training resources for them. We want to also help them as they identify the specific career interests that they have. We want to help them also connect with professional networks. So for those students that are interested in local government, we want to help them connect with either the International City Management Association or the Texas City Management Association, or if they're interested outside of Texas, connect with the right organization there. Same thing with our nonprofit organization, philanthropy and nonprofit organization, or security studies. We also want to help them connect with Texas A&M University and Bush School alumni who are doing the kind of work that they do. We also encourage them, if they did their undergraduate at another institution, we will encourage them to utilize that network as well. And I tell our students that come from other universities, look, you've got really three networks. You've got your undergraduate network, you've got the Bush School network, and you've got this larger Texas A&M University network. And we encourage them to take advantage of all of those resources. So cost. One of the things that we always tell our students and make sure that they're aware of is that we want to help you not just for that first job, but for your career down the road. And so investing in going to graduate school is something that can help you in that career. We are seeing more and more that students who have a graduate degree are finding promotion. We're hearing back from our alumni, at least anecdotally, that they're being promoted quicker in their jobs. Salary ranges, they do really well. If you look, kind of a benchmark that we use is the federal government scale. They have what's called the GS pay scale, and it helps you just see what that looks like. There's a general schedule, and then they also have schedules by locality, depending on where they're working, whether it's Houston, Dallas, or Washington, D.C., or New York, or Denver. But people who come out of graduate school in our graduate programs, and this is across the country, not just the Bush School, but other graduate programs in public and international affairs. If they only had only had a bachelor's degree, they would typically start at what's called the GS-7, step 1, which is about $50,000 a year. That's for the US federal government. If they have a master's degree, they would start at a GS-9, step 1, just because they went to 2 years of graduate school, which is about almost $62,000. So you can see there's about a $12,000 difference between the two of those. And so we encourage students really look at the cost of the graduate program that you're looking for, but earning that master's will give them roughly $11,000 to $12,000 more in the federal government. And we see about the same at the state and local level in nonprofits, although the data on those areas, because the nonprofit sector is so wide, there's no one pay scale that we can look at. Same thing with the state or local governments. There's no one local government pay scale, but we see that, $8,000 to $12,000 increase for someone who has a master's degree when they go into their first job. And then career support. We encourage students, take time now to go visit your career services office on campus, do some career assessments. Find out what their strengths are if they are in leadership organizations and have the opportunity to learn about themselves and take career inventories. Do those types of things. Attend workshops on putting together a resume, a cover letter, an interview, and get internships in those areas as an undergraduate. We also encourage students to go to graduate fairs and career fairs and find out what are the career opportunities that are out there in their major, and what would it look like if they had a master's degree in another field? What would be the best master's degree for them to pursue if that's something they're thinking about? For those that just still feel like they need to get some experience before they go to graduate school, we always encourage students to look at AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, Teach for America, City Year, or other similar service organizations in their community or at their university and find out if there are ways you can do that. Those also often have graduate school partners. We partner with all of those organizations. And when students apply to graduate school having had an AmeriCorps or Peace Corps experience, same thing with Teach for America and City Year, we will guarantee them a certain level of scholarship, and we will also often cover the cost of their application fee. So that's really important. If they know they're ready for graduate school, we encourage them check with employer relations in their university and talk to some of those employers that are coming to campus, or reach out to us and let us know what career questions they have. We're happy to answer those questions. And I think most career services offices at graduate programs in public and international affairs would be happy to do so.
Okay.
Back over to Catherine.
All right, so this is the second half. Some of these slides is going to be more of a picture and me not talking a lot about it. But I want to start with just making that grad school decision. students really need to decide outright, what they think they want to be studying, right? You can't figure that out in 2 years in grad school. They're going to hit the ground running. Before they know it, they're applying for internships, and then before they know it, they're ready to graduate. So they have to have figured out what kind of pathway they're wanting to do, whether that is an example, do I want to do this as local and state government, or do I want to focus more on international affairs, maybe a regional area, because that curriculum they're studying is going to look a lot different. Sometimes there's some overlap between them, but they're going to need to decide that versus maybe even law school. So once they've decided that study and structure, they need to see if they're qualified. Do they have the admissions requirements, the right kind of, maybe the GPA or experiences, depending on how competitive that university is, and then where they want to be. And if that's out of state, they need to consider those kinds of living arrangements and that additional cost of moving and so forth. So will they like being in that region? And then can they afford it? And there's a lot of additional opportunities for funding, and I'll go over some of that later. Sometimes you can't base what they put as their projected cost out there because they have a lot of scholarships that they can grant for certain students. It's just whether or not that student can land that based on either their background or their grades. And then they also need to make sure that they're asking the right kinds of questions. What kind of jobs can I get? How much am I going to be in debt and paying that off for the kind of salary I'm going to be making? And that's a really important discussion, as all this student debt is huge in the news and people took out more than they could afford. So they need to consider all these things before making that graduate school decision. What I put here and what I hope to then send out to you guys as a handout would be these organizations linked. I've utilized some of these organizations that we use and when I'm talking to students. So again, these are public service oriented kinds of careers. So public administration related, the one that I bolded are probably the two most important. NASPA.org has a great search function. It's the Network of Schools of Public Affairs and Administration. And they have a search function in the middle with the student section. You have to dig a little bit to get down to it, but I'll try to link it to it when I send this to you. And it has a place where they can search about different kinds of careers on that section. And there's also a school search that they can narrow it by, I'm interested in city government, and I only want schools in Texas, or I'm open to anything across the nation. And any of those schools that are part of that NASPA organization or listed there will come up on that search menu. So if I were to search just for public administration, there's probably a good 8 to 10 schools in Texas that offer that kind of degree. And that way they can get a starting point rather than just trying to Google it. APAM.org and AspenNet.org are two public affairs. If they really are interested more in the research or more in careers of that, they can get more of that kind of information that's professional oriented. The other one that I like is PPIAprogram.org, because PPIA, Public Policy International Affairs Program, they offer public service weekends where students can sign up and maybe attend that university for a weekend and learn more about kind of what we're doing right here, and learn more about what that career field is, how to prepare for it, hear from panels, hear from different activities they can do. And they'll have those opportunities that are listed across the nation that students can attend, usually somewhere between their sophomore to senior year. It's a great opportunity to, again, get their feet wet, see what they like or don't like. And then they also offer these junior summer institutes where it's basically a month-long program, and it's more for diversity intense of trying to help students who might come from low-income areas or who are underserved groups be able to get an opportunity to maybe take a quantitative methods class. So PPIA program is a great resource. Mark that one. And definitely be looking at some of your students may be very prepared for that kind of program and really blossom with some of that teaching instruction. If you're looking at international affairs, those students are interested in it, APSIA.org is really great. That's the Association of Professional Schools of International Affairs. They even have a funding section on their website, and they have a career section. They have the top 40 or so schools and international affairs across the world that you can just do one snap, click on it, go see what they offer, click back out, go to the next one, go to the next one. So APSIA.org is a wonderful one. They've got there's dozens of others, like foreign affairs, foreign policy, international affairs, net.org. Just go to any of those for those that are interested in it. Nonprofit resources, my favorite on that is idealist.org. They have a lot of different positions. So if a student is looking for where can I find some internships, they have them listed all over the nation. They've also got job opportunities listed there. They have grad school parts listed there. So a lot of great stuff. Independent sector, work for good, philanthropy, nonprofit times, also a good place for people interested in nonprofits to learn more. State, local government, there's not as many. ICMA.org, that International City Management Organization, is a great one. Governmentjobs.com, that's going to be by state. So it's doing a lot of looking and background to see what kind of jobs are being offered and what those salary ranges look like. Federal government, everyone goes through usajobs.gov, it seems like. Very, very popular. Again, doing some legwork for it. National security and diplomacy, there's a few sites there. Same thing with international economics and development. So utilize those for the students that are interested in those kinds of areas. When students do decide that they are looking for now grad schools, there's a lot of helpful websites out there. Some of the ones that I have worked on for the past 20 years, on and off, gradschools.com. So for instance, that's the graduate schools match. Those are just generic websites that pull together a lot of information, and students can search by their career interest and see what comes up. The only caveat of this is that a lot of these schools are going to be online programs who are advertising. So they really have to kind of dig down and see if that really is the best option for them. And then maybe if they get a list of schools, then follow up directly with those schools by Googling them. I put APSIA.org again because they do already list some of the top international affairs schools in the nation there in one-stop shop. Niche.com is another good one. NASPA, as I mentioned, also has their list. Some will even go so far as to go to usnews.com and pull up the top schools in such and such, and then take a look at it. But keep in mind, they don't need to look at the top 10 schools. They're probably going to be quite fine. I mean, the top 50, top 60, top 100. And just getting some schools that, again, have some traction, have a record, good career placement, those kinds of things to help them. And that's a great, again, resource. They do rank public affairs programs. They do not rank international affairs. So that one, unfortunately, I just go to APSIA and send students there. They can also just Google by keywords. Just put in top public affairs grad programs in Texas, top Master of Public Administration, public service advanced degrees. There's all kinds of ways to search. And then they need to decide if they're going to be on campus or online. And there are a lot of students who do want to do online degrees, and that's fine, especially if they're working. Just does it matter if it's endorsed or not? So they need to consider those kinds of things. They can narrow it by state, rankings, the emphasis. They can talk to people, talk to professors, talk to people at those schools, prioritize those top ones, and then they need to check affordability. Now, on our end of it, what are schools looking for? And this is not just the Bush School. This is most major grad programs. What are they looking for? They're looking for people who have an aptitude for the field. Normally, they've taken maybe a liberal arts program. That doesn't mean that every student is, but a lot of them already have taken classes related to the field they're following in. So they already see, as they're looking at their GPA, okay, look, they've already done this work and they're being successful in it. That's great. So that past academic success, does that mean someone who came out with a 2.7 can't get into this program? Not necessarily. And that's where they need to have a talk with those grad programs. Sometimes there needs to be some time away from that undergrad degree so that they've been working for a few years and they now can show some maturity and focus that maybe they just got disinterested in what they were doing at that time, or they bombed their freshman year by partying too hard. I've heard a lot of that too. And switched majors in that, biomedical major wasn't for them, or engineering, and they switched to something else. There is a way to show progress and make up for that. But again, each program can tell them what those odds are in overcoming. And that's not always just what we put on the website. A lot of times we're prioritizing that 3.6 average GPA, but there are always those that are in the twos. Almost every program's got some of those because people come with all these different backgrounds. Can they work with others? Do they show maturity and initiative? Do they have a clear sense of direction? In other words, they're not, I want to do law school, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. Something's going to, work out. You need to have a little more direction than that. They need the support by the recommenders, and they need to show leadership and involvement. So hopefully they are involved on campus activities, and maybe being a leader in some of those groups. So while in undergrad, to be competitive, they should show ability to succeed in the classroom, nurture those relevant experiences like the internships. Don't let them go through school so quickly, trying to save money, that they don't take advantage of internships and study abroad and learning language and maybe a certificate program. Those things enrich their education, and they shouldn't miss out on that in trying to hurry up and get on to, work for the rest of their life. If they can do relevant part-time jobs, language, all those things matter, especially getting into volunteerism, leadership with clubs. They need to be inventorying their passions. And maybe sometimes people will come to us into a degree like ours for public service after having gotten a degree in business. And then they've worked for a few years and go, this just doesn't satisfy who I am as a person. I want to give something back. It's not just about money. And so that's when they've now career change, and maybe grad school is shifting gears into something else. And that does happen to quite a few students. So I just listed some of the things that students need to think about in showcasing, and that's anything they can talk about. So for instance, we do interviews with students, and we're going to be asking them about how they've collaborated with others. Tell me about a situation, time management, practical training. Do you have purpose, passion? That can make up for a lower grade too, if we know someone really is passionate about their field. So lots of different things that students can be thinking about to develop their resume and their statement. Now, as far as a timeline goes, this is not going to be too different from you guys for undergrad. You guys have to really think out at least a year in advance. So students can't apply to undergrad anymore last minute. They can't do grad school that way either very much. There may be some unique exceptions, but normally if someone's looking, for instance, for fall of 2024, they need to be applying for fall of 23. And sometimes that's why they're finishing their senior year in undergrad. So they should be thinking and talking to people in the summer or earlier, and then they need to be narrowing those examples, because in the fall, those applications open. And they need to begin applying to those applications and writing those essays and find out if the GRE is even needed. Now, a lot of grad programs are waiving the GRE. A lot of that happened either before COVID and was exacerbated with COVID issues. And so many of us just didn't put it back in place. So for instance, ours is optional for that GRE. So they need to get all that part in and be thinking about the financial end of that and applying for FAFSA, because those are due somewhere around that October, at least getting started and going in. Winter, you need to confirm your app is complete, interview or talk to key players, because by the spring, you're making those decisions or visiting the campuses or comparing your funding. And if you haven't thought about some of the other issues, you don't want to make just a monetary decision. You want to make a fit decision. Nothing like people being unhappy in their grad program. You want them to enjoy what they're doing. So the materials we're looking for is an online application. Those application fees vary from, I think one of the cheapest I've seen is about $65. I know there's a few that are free. They're not very often. Some of them are expensive at over $200. But ours, for instance, is $89. That's traditional at Texas A&M with the GradCast app. We're also requiring a professional resume, a statement of purpose. Sometimes there's additional essays this a program might require. Recommendations, usually between 2 to 3. So students need to be thinking about who they can talk to, get to know well enough that can support them in a letter of rec for grad school, because those are still happening. Official transcripts usually need to be sent at the time that they decide on a program. Find out if they need to take any of these tests. International applicants will also have to meet English language proficiencies. There's a number of different ways. TOEFL and IELTS are two of the common ones. and then possible interviews. So most decisions at the grad school level, we're evaluating files all fall, but we start then reviewing them with the faculty and making interview decisions and financial decisions all through that February, March, April, right? So admissions decisions usually are coming out in March, department aid somewhere between February and April. And then there's an April 15th national deadline that most of us follow. So students have to give their answers back to the school of choice by April 15th and decline the rest of them. That's a typical timeline at the grad school level. And as far as scholarships, this is a huge investment of money. And they do need to look at what those costs are, 10 to 60,000 per year. That's not including the fees and the housing and the books and the cost of relocation and all of that. So students really have to be motivated to make this the right decision for them and at the right time for them. But one thing to be careful is sometimes people go, well, I didn't do FAFSA for undergrad. You know, I fortunately had the resources, my parents could help me. But at the grad level, they're considered independent. So they're tagged for higher financial need, and that way they can tap into those loans if they need it. And students sometimes don't know they need it until after the fact. And if they didn't apply for FAFSA, then they're out of luck. So regardless of the income and assets, they should submit FAFSA, just make sure that they can qualify for those loans and then take them out if they need it. Now, funding at grad level, a lot is program based. So they're going to come from the department or the school that you're being admitted from, whether that be, and I list that in a minute, scholarships or grad assistantships or whatever. And a lot of them are also merit-based. So this is where academics matter. Sometimes it's your college that you attended, the GPA you got there, but non-academics matter too, just like we talked about those activities and getting involved. So the order of financing that students should be concerned with is the free money they're getting, any kind of scholarships and fellowships that the departments are giving them. Sometimes there are grants available. For instance, here at Texas A&M, we will tell students who get under $10,000, you should apply for the Texas Aggie Graduate Grant because it could be worth another $5,000 for you. So we're telling them that they need to follow up with that. Sometimes you can also get waivers, at-fee waivers, non-resident tuition if they're going out of state. And that's where they need to check with those schools. The next part is earned money. I don't hear a lot of students talking about work study. I know it's a bigger thing undergrad. Grad assistantship positions I'm asked about all the time. And those are appointments for teaching or research or non-teaching given traditionally by those departments. It depends on what schools give and how many and who they're working for. Most require them to work 20 hours per week. And a lot of them are eligible for insurance benefits. They're a great gig if a student can get them, but they are competitive and not every program has them. I will tell you that the Bush School, we don't give grad assistantships until year 2. We bring everyone in on scholarship only, and then they can renew that scholarship or they can apply for a grad assistantship. And if they get the assistantship, they give up the first year scholarship. And now they're working 20 hours a week, but now they're earning closer to $20,000 where maybe they came in only at $5,000. So it's a way to bump their income for that second year based on their grades. Now that third way, we all know borrowed money. There's federal student loans, private loans. One thing we're reminding students is to check out the public service loan forgiveness. I know the Biden administration has done a lot more in trying to take out a lot of the wrinkles that was involved with the old one where people were going, I submitted this paper. Well, that was the wrong paperwork. You needed to submit this form or this job. And so they've kind of streamlined that. So that's a way to get some forgiveness after 10 years. So the loans, make sure that they're applying for FAFSA. And then there's the dates there. It's usually between October 1st and March 15th. They need to be submitting that. And then I've included a couple of helpful aid resources that I've used over the years. One is obviously the U.S. federal student aid. Lots of great information, finding out how they can get those subsidized loans if possible. There's one that I ran across several years called Ask Heather Jarvis financial website. It's got some great references on it. Sometimes I just use it to find other websites. The APSIA website it has about 134 scholarships and fellowships that are related to international and public service careers that students can go in and look for. Very helpful. They mention things like the Wrangell and the Pickering and the Bourne fellowships for language study. So APSIA, definitely be utilizing that one for your students. And then there's others, none of these are endorsed, but the things like studentadvisor.com, scholarships.com, myscholarly.com, I think these are all free ones. There may be elements that students can sign up for something else, but I don't recommend that. Take advantage of the free listings that they have there to help kind of organize what they're applying for. All right, that's it for my part. Now, I wanted to quickly just also say, I also sent all of you right after this or before this advisor workshop, a reminder about our 12th annual public service weekend. So I had mentioned earlier that a lot of schools are doing this through the ppia.org. Ours is independent of that, but we have now done this. This will be our 12th year to hold it. October 20th and 21st. If you're interacting with students that you think would enjoy coming to College Station, learning more about the careers, interacting with some of our panels, we'll have some community leaders, we'll have current students, alumni groups. We're going to pay for that travel, the lodging, and the meals. Now, some of it is going to be reimbursement for mileage. Some of it may be that one of you advisors gets a van of 3 or 4 students and brings them here, and I repay that mileage. We'll get you into a hotel here. It's usually assigning 2 students per room. If an advisor wants to come, I look to see how much room I have and usually try to get a room for yourself. And we pay for those meals while you're here. But students only have until Sunday, October 8th to apply for them. And if they're needing, if they're at 5 hours or more out and they need help getting here, like on an airfare, I only have a few of those available, and it's first come, first serve. So if you're attending from here, from a university that's well outside that 5-hour drive to College Station, make sure that your students are applying sooner rather than later, or I won't have that airline funding costs anymore, because they've gotten more expensive over the years. But these are for leaders who show an interest in public service, those who support diversity, those with a 3.0 or better. And advisors, if you want to learn more and come to campus and be able to talk more impactful about this at your campus, let me know and you can sign up too. I will say that there's an incentive. Anyone who attends the PSW, we're going to give an $89 application fee waiver. We want to reward those who are looking at this. And then every student, just so you know that we admit at the Bush School for the MPSA and MIA, we're giving at least $1,000, usually $3,000 is the least amount. And some students are getting nearly the full funding with the $20,000 towards their tuition and fees and maybe some of their living costs. So we are going to help students afford school in order to be able to pursue these careers that are of interest to them. Our yearly in-state tuition is about $13,500 right now, and our average scholarship is usually around that $5,000, $6,000 mark. So we're helping them. And then Matt in our career services office is working with those students individually and through group advisor training, coaching workshops, just to help them get those career skills, those knowledge, skills, and abilities to help them find the jobs that they want. And then just as a quick example, these are the programs that we are basically preparing students for, right? Master of Public Service Administration, Master of International Affairs. There's a Master of International Policy for those with like military experience. And there's a couple of online options. So students who can do that either on campus or here for graduate certificates. So that's it. I'm going to stop talking for a minute and see if anyone wants to jot down a question in the chat or unmute. And I'm going to stop recording. And anybody that would like to talk, just please let us know what's on your mind. And we thank you for attending for this. And we'll just, Matt and I, unmute and answer when we're ready.